For years, Buckingham Palace stood silent, its grand walls concealing secrets, never giving even a whisper about Meghan, Harry, or their children. The media buzzed, documentaries streamed, and headlines exploded across the globe, but the palace remained eerily still. Everyone wondered why this silence, why this eerie pause while everything around them was spiraling into chaos. But out of nowhere, the palace finally made its move. Calm, deliberate, and quietly powerful, it's a move that shook the very foundations of the royal family. It wasn't a rumor, this wasn't the palace reacting to emotions or interviews, no. This was cold, hard paperwork. Documents already filed away deep in the archives, just waiting for the royal signature to end a legacy. Archie and Lilibet were being permanently erased from royal history. No prince, no princess, no royal roles, no royal succession, gone. If it sounds brutal, that's because it is. But the palace views it differently. They call it order, not vengeance, not anger, just a necessary piece of royal protocol. This wasn't a decision made in a single day. This was an ancient institution, a slow-moving machine, one that only shifts when it absolutely must. And why now? Why did the palace wait so long to act, to make this cruelly calculated move? To understand that, we need to turn the pages of history way back to 1917, a time when Europe trembled and kings feared for their thrones. King George V, Harry's great-great-grandfather, saw the growing chaos around him and decided something needed to change to safeguard the monarchy. So he created a document, the Letters Patent of 1917, that would forever define who could be royal and who could not. This document wasn't a suggestion, it was a rule book, a blueprint for generations to come. Among the key rules, first, a child must come from legitimate royal blood. Second, the birth must be formally recognized and recorded by the crown. Third, the child must be baptized in the Church of England. No exceptions. No shortcuts, no allowances, even for a prince's child. For over a century, this document shaped the royal family. Every prince, every princess, every heir to the throne was part of this tight, unbroken chain until Harry and Meghan's children arrived. And suddenly, the palace noticed something. A slip. A crack in the royal framework. When Archie was born in 2019, the world celebrated. Cheers rang out, and the palace released all the usual fanfare. But beneath it all, something went wrong. On his original birth certificate, Meghan's full legal name was listed Rachel Meghan Markle. Nothing unusual about that until weeks later when it was mysteriously changed. Meghan's full legal name was wiped away and replaced with her royal title, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Why was this done? Who asked for it? Meghan suggested the palace pushed for the change. The palace aides, however, insisted that it was Meghan and Harry's request. No one backed down, the world was left to debate. But inside the palace, this was more than a petty family spat. It was about the integrity of the records. Official documents must be clear, permanent, untouched. A birth certificate is not a press release. When you alter it, you create doubt. And doubt in royal documentation is a crack that only grows wider over time. Then, in 2021, Lilibet was born. The world expected the usual royal rhythm, an official palace announcement, a formal statement, a picture for history, but what did we get instead? Silence. Not a word from Buckingham Palace, no royal doctors, no formal acknowledgement, nothing. The world learned of Lilibet's birth only through a polished press release from California. This was unheard of. The absence of the palace's involvement raised alarms. In royal tradition, a birth is more than a family event. It's an official, historical moment. A child's place in the royal lineage must be confirmed. But with Lilibet, the palace didn't even send a single statement. Months later, when Meghan revealed that Lilibet had been baptized, the public saw it as a sweet family moment. But behind the scenes, the palace wasn't as pleased. A royal christening isn't just a religious ceremony. It's a bond that connects the child to the crown. It's a legal marker that writes the child into the history of the monarchy. But Lilibet's baptism wasn't recognized by the Church of England. It was just another link in the chain of events that led to the same uncomfortable conclusion. Lilibet was slipping slipping through the cracks. And so the cracks widened. The birth, the baptism, the silence. As Archie and Lilibet's royal status seemed to diminish with each passing day, Harry allegedly made desperate late-night phone calls to Buckingham Palace. As a father, terrified for his children, he feared that his own bloodline was being erased. "Please, don't shut the door on them. They're still my children. Don't take their birthright," he pleaded. But in the palace, the answer was cold. "This is not about emotion," the aide reportedly said. "This is about order, lineage, and the future of the crown." This truth, so deeply ingrained in Harry's upbringing, shook him to the core. It was always about the crown, always about legacy. But hearing that truth applied to his own children was a blow he couldn't bear. He wasn't arguing anymore. He was begging. But no matter how hard he tried, the palace's decision was final. And then came the quiet move. No fanfare, no public outcry, just a cold, calculated action from the heart of Buckingham Palace. The documents were signed, the royal titles were erased. Archie was no longer Prince Archie, Lilibet was no longer Princess Lilibet. The line of succession, gone. The royal records, they moved forward without their names. Just like that, the royal machine had moved on. And with it, so had the possibility of their royal futures. Titles, names, legacies erased forever. This wasn't temporary, it wasn't conditional, it was permanent. The children who once stood at the edge of royal history, who could have carried the weight of centuries of tradition, were now cast aside. But the silence that followed this decision was the loudest statement of all. No royal decree, no angry backlash, just a quiet, eerie silence that spoke louder than any words. In the eyes of the monarchy, Archie and Lilibet were never truly part of the story. And now they never will be. They'll grow up in California, far from the royal spotlight. They'll know love, joy, and freedom. Everything their parents wanted for them. But their names won't be carried forward in the royal history books. Their births will never be fully acknowledged. Their baptism wasn't recognized, their place in the royal line gone. For the monarchy, this was justice. For Harry and Meghan, it was heartbreak. And for the world, it's a harsh reminder that royalty isn't a fairy tale. It's a system. A cold, unyielding system that erases what it does not want. For Archie and Lilibet, that erasure has come. And with it, the closing of their royal chapter. It wasn't the grand ending anyone expected. No royal drama, no explosive confrontation, just a quiet, final closing of a door deep within Buckingham Palace. And with that, their royal chapter fades away, never to be written again. The echoes of silence rang through the walls of Buckingham Palace, reverberating across the generations that have held the monarchy together. As the years passed since Harry and Meghan's departure, the world watched with bated breath, waiting for any sign of the palace's response. The media frenzy reached new heights with every move, every statement, and every documentary dissected for even the slightest clue of what was going on behind closed doors. But the palace remained stoic. No words, no action, just silence. Yet, in that silence, something monumental was brewing. For Harry and Meghan, this silence was deafening. The world saw the couple as rebels, fighting for their own independence, daring to speak out against a centuries-old institution. But behind their public image, a different story unfolded. They were parents struggling to protect their children, caught between two worlds, the world of public scrutiny and the world of royal tradition, where every move is tracked and every decision can change the course of history. As Archie and Lilibet grew, so did the distance between them and the royal family. What had once been a joyous celebration of new life became a quiet, unsettling realization for Harry. His children's futures were being rewritten. And so the quiet act of erasure continued. Archie and Lilibet's names were removed from the royal record books. No royal titles, no place in the line of succession. They were simply gone. The monarchy had spoken. The decision was final. Harry, who had once been a prince in his own right, was now a man caught in the tragic reality of his children's fate. He had always known the monarchy's grip on his life. He had always known the weight of tradition and protocol, but this was different. This wasn't about him. It was about his children, the very flesh and blood that he had fought to protect, and now they were being erased from the pages of royal history. In the midst of this, Harry's calls to the palace grew more desperate. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't asking for the palace to welcome him and Meghan back into the fold. What he was pleading for, with a heart full of fear and frustration, was the future of his children. He wanted them to be recognized, to be seen, to have a place in the world he had grown up in. He wasn't asking for titles, he wasn't asking for privileges, he was asking for the one thing that mattered most to him, for his children to have the same legacy that every royal child before them had been given. The ability to be remembered, to have their names etched into history, to have a place in the family that defined his entire existence. But the palace was unmoved. The response was blunt, cold, and final. This was not about emotion, they said. This was about order, lineage, the crown. The system that had governed the monarchy for centuries could not be bent, not even for Harry's children. The crown had made its decision, and it wasn't swayed by pleading or familial ties. The monarchy, it seemed, had no room for sentiment. It had only room for duty. And duty demanded that Archie and Lilibet be removed from the royal narrative. In the end, there was no dramatic public farewell, no tear-filled press conference, no royal showdown. There was only the quiet rustling of official papers, the signing of documents, and the removal of titles. The world moved on, oblivious to the historic moment unfolding behind the palace gates. No one outside the royal circle truly understood what had happened. No one could see the pain behind Harry's eyes as he came to terms with the fact that his children's place in the world had been denied by the very institution he had been born into. Archie and Lilibet will grow up in California, far from the palace walls, far from the world that their father once inhabited. They will experience life in the warm sunlight of California, free from the constraints of royal duty and public scrutiny. They will have love, joy, and the freedom their parents always dreamed for them. But the shadow of what could have been will follow them forever. They will never carry the title of prince or princess. They will never have a place in the royal line. Their names will never be spoken in the same breath as kings and queens. Their story will fade into the background of royal history, a forgotten chapter in the pages of the monarchy that once shaped their father's entire existence. For some, this is justice. For others, it is heartbreak. But for most, it is a bitter reminder that royalty is not a fairy tale. It is a system, a slow, unyielding machine that erases what it no longer deems worthy. And for Archie and Lilibet, that erasure has come. The door has quietly closed, and with it, their royal chapter. The history books will turn and their names will fade, and the crown will move on,